And you're watching America's Forum right here on Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman.
J.D. Hayworth here, and our pal Ed Berliner, Newsmax TV host here for Hour 3. We're glad to have you, Ed. Topic to talk about involving Washington. Imagine that. And something I used to be involved in, congressional hearings. A lot of recent hearings pointing to the discord festering in our government. Take a listen.
Sir, I've read you what your department promised, and it is inadequate. And I realize that contempt is not a big deal to our Attorney General, but it is important that we have proper oversight. So,
you don't want to go there, okay?
It's interesting that you declare it dead, but the Israelis and the Palestinians don't declare it dead. They want to continue to negotiate.
We'll see, won't we, Mr. Secretary?
Beg your pardon?
We'll see.
Well, yeah, we will see, but why
It's
declare
stopped.
it dead
It is
today?
stopped. Recognize reality.
Well, of course, debate is essential, but there is this concept that can't we disagree without being disagreeable? Indeed, all of the talk about a lack of civility remains on the minds of the American people. It's pointed out in poll after poll, and it's a topic taken up by one of my favorite columnists. He used to come see us when I served as chairman of the Conservative Opportunity Society. He's got a brand new book out. Syndicated columnist, commentator, broadcaster Cal Thomas. His new book, What Works? Cal, we thank you very much for your time, and we welcome you to America's Forum.
Thank you very much. What a nice build-up. I appreciate it.
Well, we have to, I've written the purposes of full disclosure. When you write a book, you got to come visit with everybody, and you took the time to write it, and you say you have solutions. Now listen, conflict, controversy, one-upsmanship, it's part of the rhetorical debate. Heck, it's part and parcel of some of your columns every day. So how do you agree without being disagreeable?
Well, I think I found a third way here, and it's not new with me. I mean, the book of Ecclesiastes says there's nothing new under the sun. Everything you think has been thought before, and everything you do has been done before. Look, if you go to a new city for the first time, let's say Paris, France, most people would buy a guidebook or search for hotels and travel tips and tourist sites online. You trust people who have been there before, who have stayed in those hotels, who have eaten in those restaurants and have written reviews. Well, why don't we do the same thing with this country? We have had people who went before, starting with the founders. They experienced what they experienced coming from England. Why don't we learn from them? They wrote a brilliant document. It's called the Constitution. It established borders beyond which the federal government should not go. And the reason we have a $17 trillion debt and the government is so dysfunctional and can't operate properly is because we have crossed those borders and we're asking government to do more and ourselves to do less. So let's examine the programs and policies in place right now. Every agency of government, every program has authorizing legislation and or a charter. And within that legislation and charter, they have a purpose for those programs and agencies. If they're not living up to those purposes, we get rid of them. If they are, we keep them. It's really very simple.
Well, you set that up, and it does sound very simple, and you also gave us a touch of the theological in terms of the citation from Ecclesiastes. Now, Lynn Adams, who served as Secretary of Labor under George H.W. Bush, used to say, I don't know what your spiritual dispensation is, but there are some who say if you want eternal life, just be reincarnated as a government program in Washington because your life will go on and on and on without end. The fact is, we don't have these sunset rules. We haven't seen that done to rein in government. So how do we put those things in place?
Right. Well, Reagan used to say something like that. The only proof of eternal life in Washington is a government program. It's easier to kill a vampire than a government program, and the analogy is an apt one because both suck the lifeblood out of people or countries. Look, here's what I think is needed. First of all, the politicians have to start talking about it. We have to make people aware. We still have, I think, a remnant of the Puritan DNA in most of us. Most parents told us, clean your plate, honey, because people are starving in the world and they'd like to have what you're having. Well, I happen to tell my parents, send the broccoli to them. I don't like it. They sent me to my room without dessert. But I think we need a return of the Grace Commission, but this time with teeth. People may remember Ronald Reagan appointed it in 1980. to study the federal government, do an audit of the federal government from top to bottom. They produced a voluminous document with all the waste and fraud and abuse that's going on in government and recommendations to cut it. Problem was that Congress ignored it because it didn't have any teeth in it. So what's needed is a Grace Commission with the teeth that the Brock Commission had, the Base Realignment and Closing Commission. They had authority to close down outmoded and unnecessary military installations, some of which have been around since World War II and were no longer applicable to current challenges in our defense posture. Them down, and it gave the congressman cover, because if people in their district complained about loss of economy and loss of jobs, they could say, well, don't blame me, that was that evil Brock Commission. So that's what we need, and every business goes through audits and through self-examination. It cuts out the waste, and it improves the bottom line. That's what we need for our government.
Well, Cal, the title of the book is What Works. Give us the best concrete example you can right now of something that is working, that has a government stamp on it.
Well, I think Social Security certainly was working when it lived up to its original charter and commission. It was never designed to be what it is today. It was an insurance program that would make sure that nobody at the age of retirement lived in poverty and died of starvation. But we've added so much onto it, like a Christmas tree, so many decorations, so many goodies for people, that it can't be sustained. Same with Medicare. Now, when Paul Ryan came up with a very serious, wasn't perfect, but a serious proposal to reform Medicare, what did we get? Did we get a debate? No. We got a TV commercial with a Ryan lookalike pushing Granny over a cliff in a wheelchair. That's not a serious response to a serious proposal. Food stamps, out of control, 47 million people on them and growing. Nearly half the country gets a government check. We can't even win wars anymore, and yet we're asking, the Obama administration is asking, to take over 1/6 of the economy. Government, if it lives within its means, defending the borders, repairing the potholes at the state and local level, will do a far better job. But we're moving rapidly in this country from USA to ATM. And motivation, inspiration, and perspiration are being replaced by envy, greed, and entitlement, the unholy trinity of the secular left. We got to turn that around again. We're only one generation away from killing ourselves.
Hey, Cal, I'll tee one up for you here. 30 seconds that we have left. We saw John Kerry and John McCain going at it. Let's just get this out in the open here. How bad are the actors in Washington when you see guys like this who absolutely just go after each other, knowing full well they'll probably go out and have a drink afterwards?
Yeah, well, it's a little game, and that's why we need term limits. These people are pathetic. They don't fix anything. They just throw these rhetorical barbs back and forth at each other. We need term limits to get them out of here before they get infected with what used to be called Potomac fever, and the sooner the better. But the American people have to decide that the greater power is within them, not in Washington. And if dysfunctional government hasn't proven it by now, I don't know what will.
Cal Thomas, the author of What Works. We appreciate the visit. We wish you well with this new book. And as always, you're a welcome guest here on America's Forum.
Thanks so very much, fellas. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Yes, indeed. So what do you think is going to work in terms of restoring civility or being able to agree or disagree without being disagreeable? Why don't you check in with us via social media? You can go to Twitter and tweet us at Newsmax, #America's Forum, and you also see our address. And again, there's Facebook. There is more straight ahead. Stay with us on America's Forum.